Someone had some music? Oh. And the session is being recorded. I feel like we are good to go. Yeah? Yes, I think we are good to go. So welcome, everyone. I hope you're in the right room. This is where we are discussing decolonizing advisory community. A very interesting session, as you will soon find out. And to kick us off, we'd like to just know where you are joining us from, maybe your organization, and we'll get a link so that we can do that, get a sense of who is in the room right now. Yeah, we have a Mentimeter, so we can actually do that. If you go to that, then we'll get a quick sense of who is in the room right away. So please feel free to type in. We actually want you to fill in, yeah, it's coming up. You can see we have a lot of Europe, quite a good number of South America is emerging as present in the room. People joining us from all kinds of places. I've seen London, I've seen Washington, all kinds of places. Antarctica is missing in action, but Africa is present. Yeah. North America is quite present. Europe is really present. Keep going. If you haven't told us where you are joining us from, please feel welcome. And we are happy that you can be part of us this afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. Yeah, okay. But on your Zoom, feel free to also write your country so that we also have a good sense of where you are from. But this is very interesting. It shows we do have a very good representation of the world all over. So we are all good to go. And at this stage, I'll invite my colleague, Rebecca, to take us through the main part of this, this session. Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you so much, Janet, and it's wonderful to see everybody here. We've got 65 of us joined for a conversation about decolonizing, and we wanted to take you back to a bit of the history and experience of this prototyping team, which also joins us from all over the world. And so I wonder if the tech team could spotlight Dylan Matthews from Peace Direct, as well as Anna Myers and Nancy from Ghana, from WAXI. So these are people who've been particularly closely involved in this prototyping team, although it's involved loads of different people over time. And just to take us back to the very beginning, Dylan, really, you were the person who came up with this idea of having a decolonizing advisory support team or some kind of platform, some kind of service. Could you take us back to your original understanding of what was the need that you saw and what was the dream that you had?
Thanks, Rebecca. Great to be here. So yes, looking back, and it's a long time ago now, but just to set the scene, this idea, I think, has been a long time coming. I think it's sort of long overdue, and the reason for that is that you know, for some people, for some donors, and for some NGOs, the whole decolonizing debate, the decolonizing agenda, has taken them by surprise. And it's true that the decolonizing conversation, the way it's currently phrased right now, decolonizing aid, is something that has emerged over the last couple of years. But actually, there's a long and rich tradition of people challenging neo-colonial attitudes, around the superiority of our, Western or global North approaches. That goes back decades, and particularly in Latin America. So they've been in Latin America, they've been talking about decoloniality for decades. So this isn't something that was just dreamt up in the last 2 years. This has a rich tradition of, global South activists challenging the way in which the system itself is really, embedded in some problematic attitudes around what we think in the global North, we think is expertise and our knowledge, and that we are here to somehow civilize other people. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing was that, it was a couple of years ago when, following the Black Lives Matter movement becoming a global movement, that I think the sector started to really look at itself, examine itself, and examine whether or not there have been these huge blind spots in how we have the sector itself, the international humanitarian development and peacebuilding sectors have evolved over the years. And there are people like Degan Ali who have been outspoken about this for many, many years. And so credit to her and others who have been very vocal about this and have taken what has been a conversation in hushed corners into the mainstream. And so for our part of this, so how did Ringo get involved? Well, myself as a chief executive of a global North organization called Peace Direct, we released a report called Time to Decolonize Aid 2 years ago. And that was based on this global consultation that we held with civil society actors from over 50 countries around the world. It ran over 3 days, 160 participants, all of them sharing some very, very sobering stories about how structural racism shows up in the work and in the sector. And actually, there was this huge outpouring of, I guess, frustration and also energy for change. And that's where the idea came from. So we saw that there was this enormous momentum to really shake up the system. And that goes along with all the things that are happening with Shift the Power movement and others. And so we started having conversations with Global North organizations. In the last 18 months, Peace Direct has spoken to probably close to 100 NGOs around the world, and a number of governments, about 6 or 7 governments, over 1,000 people. And all of them, almost all of them exclusively, are saying the same thing. They're saying, we recognize that there's a problem here and that we recognize we've got to do something about it, but they don't know how. And this really got me thinking. So organizations not sure what decolonizing means and how to decolonize, how and when to take the first step. They're worried about that. And there's a sort of, although there's a widespread recognition of the problem, there's a sort of paralysis, afraid to take the first step, afraid to acknowledge the problems in their own organizations. And so it's taking time. But one of the things that we kept hearing time and time again was, we need help. We need support, we need guidance, we need advice from those who can really, walk with us to help us understand how to transform our organizations. And right now, either they're trying to do that internally, or they are going to Global North management consultants. And actually that's wrong. I mean, we feel that instinctively that's wrong. So the idea was, lots of people are talking about this. Lots of Global North organizations recognize they need to transform themselves. Actually, there's a wealth of experience and insight and wisdom that we've already tapped into through our global consultations, which show that actually there are fantastic activists who could be accompanying Global North organizations in that process of change. So that's where the idea came from. Over this period of 18 months, talking to the most very different NGOs, and really now trying to figure out how can those organizations be supported, and how can we make sure that Global South actors really are in the driving seat of being able to accompany that change process.
Thanks, Dylan. And so you put this idea forward in one of the big RINGO workshops. It got lots of interest, lots of traction. A group gathered around that idea and started to think of itself as a prototyping group, as a group that could test this idea, who could try and design something that would give a platform to this idea, actually turn it into reality. And Anna, you were one of the first people to put your hands up, and you've been probably one of the most loyal members of the group since it formed. What was it about the idea that drew you?
Oh, thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, I think, it was the actionable purpose. It's exactly what Dylan was talking about. It's taking that frustration and the energy and then seeing that we could actually develop a platform and make sure it's not only driven by those advisors from the Global South, but it's housed in the Global South. And I think the other part of this was that we really wanted to center decolonizing in every step of the way. So it wasn't just the outcome as like a platform for decolonizing, but to have that in our, within our team, thinking about power, within the process, thinking about power, and really trying to see that through at every step. And also, hard not to want to be on this team. It's the dream team. You have, the research and advocacy that Peace Direct has done. You have the incredible leadership and work of Waxy and our guiding light, Nancy, and the incredible team and coaches as well. So I think the energy and the commitment really drew me to it and has made me so honored to be a part of it.
Thank you, Anna. And I have to say that it's very rare that you have a group that comes together and somebody puts up their hand who is freelance and says, I'm offering to coordinate this group. I'll set up all of the doodles and Anna did that. She has really made sure that we keep meeting, and it's an invaluable contribution. Speaking of invaluable contributions, Nancy, you then got very involved from Waxy, and you started to think really strategically with us about, okay, we've got this assumption about the demand from global North organizations. We have an assumption about what kind of resources, services, expertise is available in the South. We have an assumption about these two things meeting somewhere, but let's find out more. And so you put together a survey to find out more about the kind of expertise, availability, services in the South, and what was really being requested in the North, and what was what appetite did people in global North organizations really have to put their money where their mouths were and to embark on a process that probably wouldn't be a one-off conversation. Nancy, can you tell us a bit about what you learned from those surveys?
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Like you rightly said, we began with two assumptions. Like one, there'll be demand for this service, and there's also a supply for that. But we needed to test that assumption. So we reached out to the Global South, and we were really amazed to realize that there are a lot of advisors in the Global South who are available, and not just available, we're interested in this kind of service and we're willing to provide support. We also learned one thing interesting, that we couldn't get one particular advisor who is in quotes an advisor for decolonizing, because we realized that the whole concept of decolonizing is a big umbrella, and under that there are different aspects of organization that need support. So we had different expertise in different angles. So that was one insightful findings from the Global South. Then we went to the Global North, and we wanted to also test the demand side. And yes, we realized that in two angles, there's conversation going on among a number of NGOs on how to decolonize. But there were some few NGOs who were still not sure if they are ready to have this kind of conversation. But yet they were ready to gain additional knowledge about this process. But those who were already having the conversation highlighted some of the gaps that they need to go through the process, the support they need in terms of advisory on how to start, in terms of how to get leadership buy-in. Some were even specific, telling us about they need support to decolonize their governance practices, their programming, their policies and regulations. And they also had budgetary allocated for these, which was really, really interesting. So the survey revealed that our assumption wasn't now. Yes, there is the demand and there is also an available supply for that.
Thanks, Nancy. And you've stepped more and more into this role, and now WAXI will be hosting the prototype, which is a platform, and we'll hear more about how that platform is being developed and will be tested in a moment. But one of the things, if we just stick with the survey for a while, one of the things that really struck me was how quickly people on the global north side of the survey responded, and in large numbers. I mean, within probably a week or so of sending out the survey, we had 170 responses, and it was quite extensive. People had to put in a bit of time to answer the survey, and so it gave a taste of what kind of energy there is, I guess, and sense of need that needs to be addressed. So I'm just going to throw it open to the three of you. Was there anything else that particularly struck you or surprised you or has influenced our thinking in what you heard in the surveys? Anybody can jump in.
I can start, then Dylan and Anna can continue. So initially we were only thinking about the matchmaking bit of the whole process, that we need advisors to match with on the demand side. But the survey taught us that, well, the demand is not only interested in advisors, but also in a form of getting the space to learn more about the concept of decolonizing. So the aspects of knowledge and educational and learning space became very critical. And that has actually been shaped the way we proceeded with this prototype moving forward. So that was really striking to me, how we need to look at the balance of matching and also creating the space for learning.
Yeah,
thanks,
absolutely.
Nancy. Anna, yeah, come in.
Yeah, no, and I think another thing that came out of that was so exciting was, I think WAXI framed it during this process of making it a welcoming community. Like there's so much interest, but that we went from thinking of this as a service to thinking of this as a community, and that was because this is really for everyone, and it's space for people to connect and learn, but in a sense that we're all in this together. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. Dylan, anything else that really stood out for you?
I think, in addition to what Anna and Nancy just said, I think for me, what was most striking was just how much interest there was also from Global South activists to really be part of this. So we weren't sure. We know that this conversation has been very difficult around, tackling structural racism in our sector. It's something that many organizations have been resistant to sort of embrace, but we now, I think, from both those surveys see that things really are shifting. So both from the supply side, so from Global South actors saying, we want to be part of this, we want to share our insights. And now those activists, if you look across the survey, they aren't specifically organizational development consultants. These are practitioners. These are people with a lived experience, but who can, I think, provide incredible insights and guidance for Global North organizations. And then on the Global North side, the demand side, I thought what was interesting was, while we did have, I think something like 20% of the finding of the survey respondents said, we're not quite ready. We're not quite ready for this conversation. So there's that sort of acknowledgement that this is difficult and this is going to take time. The rest of them were on the journey. So they may have been at the early stages of that journey. In fact, I don't think any of them were well advanced. Most of them said we're just beginning. But for me, that was really, really encouraging, that there's this genuine surge of interest, both on the supply side and the demand side. So I think Nancy and the WAXI team were absolutely right to shift from this conceptualization of a service being provided, which I still love the idea, but actually being more than just a service, but being actually a community. So I think that's, it's the evolution of the idea, I think, reflects very much what we're hearing from the survey.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anna and Dylan. We've momentarily, I hope, lost Nancy, because Nancy's absolutely critical to the rest of our presentation, but I think she's I'm finding another device to get back. She has no electricity at the moment where she is. We're gonna, we've been talking at a very high level about what we saw in the survey, and we're gonna hand back to you, Janet, to hear more about, you know, what does that actually, what are people's actual lived experiences in a bit more detail? Over to you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you, Nancy and Anna.
Janet, your voice is very faint.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Much better.
I hope I'm not about to lose electricity. Yeah, anyway, thank you, Dylan and Nancy and Anna, for those very informative highlights about how we've gotten to where we are now, to a point where we tested, we gathered a lot of information. I think that's a very, very useful background. We would actually now want to just get a feel, a very down-to-earth feel of what really happens in real life, both from the global north perspective as well as from the global south. And I would like to invite questions or comments from the floor around what we need to know right now is to get a sense of what are the kind of challenges that global north organizations experience when they are trying to decolonize. And I'll call on Alicia to kind of kick us off on that. And I'm happy to also hear from anyone else who's willing to give us some perspectives. What are the kind of challenges that are experienced when northern organizations are trying to decolonize? Alicia, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Janet.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to open the space being very candid. The goal here is not to present the beautiful, shiny, wonderful, positive pieces, but to really be honest about the challenges that many of us are going to navigate when we engage in this work. So speaking from my perspective, I am based in the global north. I'm based in the United States, and I do work with a huge global NGO nonprofit here that's based in North Carolina. First and foremost, when we talk about challenges, I think the first is really helping people to let go of a scarcity mindset, right? So there is this real assumption that if we have global south advocates and experts and leaders who are now rising in prominence and in their role in this work, then there's less for us, right? So there's this scarcity mindset that there's a zero sum, that if these actors become more important and more powerful and more prominent, then we must inherently become less powerful, less prominent, less relevant. And while that is both true and necessary, it's very short-sighted, because it's not as though we got into this circumstance of global health and development overnight. And that is to say, there's still a very critical, active, necessary, important role for global north actors when it comes to working in solidarity in terms of shifting of power and resources. So it's not as though all of this scarcity mindset, it happens immediately and overnight. And it doesn't necessarily mean every part of the work of global north actors has to disappear. It means for these actions, for this work, for decolonization to be meaningful and prompt actual change, yes, our role has to change. I think the second thing that's really important for global north actors, particularly in the nonprofit space, much of the infrastructure of these organizations, it's funding based, it's project based, right? It's very short term in the way the infrastructure works. You get funding from a donor or a funder. That's how you structure your projects, your infrastructure, your overhead, your oversight. So the idea of shifting to use internal resources to go about a learning journey on decolonization is antithetical to how these projects and these nonprofits are set up. Because if everything you do is based off of external funding being present, saying that now you have to shift internal resources towards this, it's a completely different model. And you're doing it for something that in some ways seems uncertain, right? Because donors they don't have funding announcements right now that say, doing the work of decolonizing. So it's asking you to take resources you would not have allocated otherwise for something that may not result in any kind of tangible payoff. It's just that it's the right thing to do, and it's a necessary thing to do. So there's quite a bit that you're asking people to take on in some ways without a direct reward in their way. It's more of a moral imperative than it is a financial gain in the short term. So I'll just stop there. I think many others have other things to share and contribute. Thank you all for having me. I'm happy to connect with others too as they're navigating doing this work as well.
Thank you very much, Alicia, for that very insightful contribution. Do we have another global participant which is interested in giving some insights in that? Or shall we hear from Global South?
Janet, you're quite faint again.
Ooh. Okay, I hope you can hear me now. Maybe
That's good.
shout.
That's good.
Okay, anyone from Global North wanting to share another perspective on how they experience or the challenges they have in trying to decolonize? Oh yeah, I can see Dylan.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. Just really to build on what's been said, I think one of the things that we found, both I think within Peace Direct, but also in talking to lots of organizations about how to start this journey, I think that there is a real challenge in the sector. I think the sector feels this is a bit of an existential threat rather than an opportunity to really remake the sector in a way which actually benefits the people and the communities that we're all trying to support. And I think that one of the problems that we also face is that Global North organizations, and Alicia mentioned this, alluded to this, is that we live and operate on short-term funding cycles and projectized ways of working. And what that's led to, if you look at some of the other change agendas that are out there right now, so for example, localization, which I'm very critical of, and Peace Direct is very critical of, which is, you know, the localization agenda itself has become quite a technocratic exercise. It's become, you know, let's change a few tiny pieces of the system to make sure that there's more money going to local actors. Whereas actually what we're talking about here, I think, is a fundamental change in mindsets. And a change in our mindsets and our worldviews isn't something that can be done overnight, nor is it something that you can just have a tick box where you can then go through a checklist and say, right, I've job done, I've now decolonized, or job done, I've now localized. And I think, so one of the things that we're seeing right now is that people want a sort of quick fix when there isn't really a quick fix to the type of work that is necessary. It's deep work. Often it's quite personal work because it's about us as individuals and how we view the world and how we see our relationship to others and how we value our own expertise and how we value other people's expertise. So I think actually one of the real challenges right now is how do we as a sector, as Global North organizations, dismantle some of those mindsets and assumptions? Because if we try and do some of the technical pieces whilst remaining, you know, with those mindsets unchanged, the sector's not going to change. We're not going to see the big change, the big transformation that is necessary. So I think that our own way of working actually hinders us. The way in which we are used to working is hindering the way in which transformation really needs to take place.
Thank you very much, Dylan, for that. I think you are really loud and clear. I can see three hands. Lisa, you are the first. Would you like to go quickly and then Esther?
We can't hear you, Janet.
Okay, we'd like to hear more perspectives, and I think we'll give Lindsay, then followed by Anad. Lindsay, would you like to go first, and then quickly we'll go to Anad and Esther before we go to Global South.
Thank you. I'll keep it really brief, but this is also making me reflect from the Global North organization perspective about workforce issues and issues of, you know, there are hierarchies within these organizations that can make it difficult for staff who want to change the way work happens to do so. And especially in the United States, we're seeing some movements around like unionization of employees so that they have a stronger voice, both in, you know, kind of benefits and salaries, but also in how organizations are run. So I think that the internal culture of the organization and the empowerment of workers, who are often the ones who have these direct relationships with colleagues in the Global South, It needs to be something that that we attend to.
Hello there. I've not been involved in RINGO or anything like this before, so I'm kind of dialing in, but it's really fascinating to hear the perspectives. I work for a conservation environmental NGO, international NGO, Forest Stewardship Council. I'm just trying to see if I've got, you see these tree tick logos around on things, on products. These, maybe you can see that. Can you see that? You can't see that. But so it's about responsible sourcing, and a lot of it is actually about the way we work. Is very much about the principles that we set, is very much about the power dynamics between North and South as we set it up. We're a membership organization ourselves, and we're very much built in our terms of our governance to have equal say between North and South. We have a governance system which is sets principles on something what we call a three-chamber basis, an environmental chamber, a economic chamber, businesses effectively, and a social chamber, indigenous peoples, workers' rights, that come together to set our principles, and then how these principles are filtered down onto the ground. And then we have sub-chambers, North and South as well, in our international space. And the way we've just come back from a General Assembly where our members came together they come together every 3 years, where motions are debated about the direction of travel between the system. But so much of that is still based on, I would say, a colonial system inbred. So even though we've got a governance system that is trying to break that norm and trying to consciously break the biases that are there, if you like, knowing that they are there, the challenge is still that, I mean, our membership is heavily dominated between Latin America. Our mothership, our head office is actually in Mexico, in Oaxaca. So our membership is based, and then our operations, however, are run out of Bonn in Germany. So you have this kind of, and you have this very much, actually, I would say you have this very much juxtaposition in the way we work. As we operate, our operations are very colonial kind of mindset, if you like, let's just say, and built in that frame. Our engagement, because of where it is, but also the way that the Latin American membership partakes in the membership and how active they are in engaging in the membership and setting our principles, that is very much a Latin American style. So there you do see that empowerment and the kind of those topics around decolonization coming through as well, and the want to decolonize. And some of that comes through in some of the motions discussions in our General Assemblies, for instance, setting up more national or regional, strengthening national or regional partners, network partners as we call them, operating on the ground in the South. However, I would say we're very much at the start of exploring. Well, no, I wouldn't say we're at the start of it, but they're probably at the start of. I am at the start of it in our organisation, understanding where that goes and what I can do to help this. To make it more, to make first of all it more aware that we do have these biases, and secondly, to do something about these biases as well. That's it. So yeah, it's a fascinating learning experience this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you're getting into a very important aspect, which we often don't or are not prepared to deal with, the issue of governance, the structures that we have created for ourselves, which either hinder or make it possible for us to move these processes. So a lot of reflection required in that direction. Before I hear more Global North, allow me to see whether we have any Global South actors or anyone from Global South who would like to also say how they experience this kind of efforts. Do we have any courageous person who would like to kind of say how the experience is. I've seen two hands from Global North. Oh, Abdul, I think you are from Global South. You'd like to go?
Yes, thank you so much. This has been a very insightful and educative meeting, and I'm following up a lot. I'm learning a lot from this, especially with the terms that are being used, and I want to follow up to learn more from other experts on this platform. And I think this meeting shouldn't just finish and it will be the end, but rather I'll suggest that further consultation and further platforms should be in place, whereby should any of us have any concern to reach out to the experts, we can easily reach out to them and tap into their expertise. So thank you so much, Madam Moderator, and to all the wonderful presenters. I truly appreciate all their presentations. Thank you so much. And also to Ringo for bringing this up. It's very, very, very important, and it's something that I'll appeal to them to organize time to time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdul. If you hear from you, Mara.
Yeah,
And then
hello.
Nana.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to speak in a very low voice because it is very early here where I live. And I hope that you can hear me anyway. So my question is the following. I hope you understand this is an anti-myself question. So please, I hope everyone understands. How are you going to strike a balance between people based? I am super Latin American because of personal reasons. I live in the global north. So this is my situation. So how are you going to strike a balance between people like I, that we are Latin Americans, but we are whitish, we are the elites from where we come from? Okay, number one, group number two, popular movements, you know, people who are closest to the popular movements, to the grassroots, to the grassroots, to the people that we usually call the beneficiaries, but who maybe don't have all of this theoretical knowledge on the international development sector that we have because we studied abroad and we know the vocabulary and we know the terms and we know what is going on. We can read in English, blah, 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 all of these privileges. I hope it is understood that we call it in Spanish, the South in the North. So people like I who are from the South, but from the North also. So I hope it is understood. It is a weird question, but I hope you understand and someone can answer.
Thank you for your question. I hope you'll get down to it because I can see a lot of action both in the chat and see what you say. I think we do have those scenarios where people from global south are living in the north.
Janet, we can't hear you.
Okay, even now you can't hear me?
Yes, now we can.
God. I don't know what's going on today. Anyway, we would like to hear some experiences from Global South. Nana, I hope you can hear me. How do people experience this decolonization effort? Nana, you'd like to go?
Yes, I think that for organizations working in the Global South, there's a lot of talk about decolonization and a lot of decolonization, localization. It's become like one of the many slogans that we hear within the NGO sector. But some of the questions I've heard is, who is leading this discussion about decolonization? And really, what is it? Where is the voice of organizations that are really working or feel like they are getting the short end of the stick? Where is their voice in this discussion about decolonizing? Because, and even within the so-called former colonies, there are questions. I mean, there are people who say you shouldn't be talking about decolonization. You should be talking about our agency. rather, because we are no longer colonial, you know, so that even the whole discussion about decolonizing and what it actually means is one of the areas that I think, and that's why it's so great that the advisory service that we are looking at, we'll be looking at a knowledge, learning and sharing, because we need to come to a certain understanding about what we need. And the other thing I've also seen about and working and engaging organizations in the global north is that there are also questions, particularly for those who are of the, you know, Black and other, you know, other ethnic groups that are not white within organizations, and the way they feel also about decolonizing and the whole, so it has different meanings, which I think that sometimes could be confusing, even for boards that have to take decisions on this, and particularly how they message for organizations in the global north for the kind of support, if they are an organization that depends on in the ordinary people to support the work that they do. How do they, what's the messaging that goes out? And for us in the global south, so that it's not just talk, that we actually see that you can actually see that there's change happening. There's a lot of talk about it, but the impact, I think, you know, the change is, and I do agree that it's not an easy process. But for us, we've not yet seen we've not yet seen the change, but at least you can see that there is the discussion around it, which is good. Yeah.
Thank you, Nana. So the push for something we can touch and feel, not just words or talk, and a process that allows us to have.
Janet, so sorry to interrupt again. We can just hear you, and now we get you again.
No. And yet I'm actually shouting where I am. Okay, I'm really sorry about this. So anyway, I think we are saying there are many angles to this, and it's so important that we listen. From the South, what is needed is action. I would like to hear from Primrose before we lose, and I hope we'll get time to hear. There's been an outstanding hand somewhere. Primrose, you can hear me?
Yes, I can. I hope you can hear me too, because my connection is not that stable.
You can hear.
Okay, thank you, Janet. So my name is Primrose Manyalo, and I work with Restless Development. It's an organization that works with young people across the world. So I'm joining in from Zimbabwe. It's quite interesting. You asked a question about what organizations in the Global South are doing. So I just pasted a link in the chat. Because we created a power shifting checklist. But what we did is that we asked young people in the Global South what power shifting means for them. So we had young people leading that process, asking their colleagues, young people from the Global South, asking their colleagues what power shifting looks like for them. And they developed that list for us. I won't get into what the list says, but I think one of the key things we've been doing at Restless Development for a very long time is placing youth leadership at the forefront of our interventions. So this has helped in terms of ensuring that those at the front line are defining the problem, and they are defining the way in which, you know, that problem is resolved. Of course, there's still a lot to do in terms of like the global North and Global South relations and where the decision-making is concentrated. But one thing that has really helped us at Restless Development is listening to young people and making either our strategies or our ways of doing business be informed by what the young people are telling us. Another model we've used in capacity building, actually, we have what we call the Youth Collective. It is about 4,000 youth civil society organizations across almost all countries, like 187. So when it comes to working with youth civil society, we haven't, as Restless Development, defined, you know, like training needs and how to train for them. Like we haven't developed models which we impose on the youth civil society, but we have created platforms for them to exchange knowledge. So we have run what we call leadership labs. I recall in February, we did one on resource mobilization, and the question was, what worked in terms of mobilizing resources during COVID-19? And we created that space for youth organizations to exchange those ideas amongst themselves and be the ones who are actually curating the knowledge and the training around that topic. So for me, I think it dismantled this whole idea of best practices coming from the global north and then imposing them on the global south. So I've just given 2 examples. But I also sit within, we don't call it our global team anymore, because I'm part of our international family, but I'm doing my role from Zimbabwe. So we have tried as an organization to also just really create more roles within the global south to influence and shape global development. So drive our work from across our hubs and flatten the hierarchy so that expertise is not traditionally within the global north. So I sit in our strategy leadership team, but I'm African. I'm from Zimbabwe. In most of the spaces I'll get, people will get surprised that I live in Zimbabwe, you know? So we've been trying to do that more and more, where big roles like a big global education campaign is run from Rwanda, because possibly that's where the expertise is. And we have started questioning ourselves in terms of where the expertise lies and where we actually start spreading, you know, expertise across the organization. So I thought, of course, we are still on a journey of learning and unlearning as well, but those are 3 like tangible, specific examples of what we've done: the power shifting checklist, the leadership labs through our youth collective platform, as well as decentralizing big global roles.
Thank you very much. Yes, there are very practical ideas about how you're doing it in your own organization. I would say
Janet.
Oh my
We
God.
can't.
You
There
can't
you
hear
go.
me?
We always
You can hear me
interrupted.
now?
It magically works.
You can hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, in the interest of time, I know I've seen Garrett's hand for a long time, and of course, Esther, I would really encourage everyone to, or rather encourage him and anyone else with some ideas to put on the chat so that we don't miss out to actually see what has been developed. Since Nancy is with us right now, and we don't know how long her network will survive. So please put something on the chat, and there's a lot going on in the chat. I've not even attempted to read it. So please, let's listen. Let me hand over to Rebecca so we get to the next stage, and then we can come back to the exchange if time allows. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And this is really the kernel of this session, is for Nancy to be able to present to us what she and the team have been working on so far. This is an early iteration of our prototype. Over to you, Nancy.
Thank you, Rebecca. Please, I hope you can hear me.
Perfectly.
Okay, great. Thank you, Leslie, for sharing. So I'm really excited. I remember whilst we were sharing our experience, a number of us was talking about now is the time for us to look for advices from the Global South and about decolonizing. So the team, we've developed an online platform. And what I'm about to share with you is the PDF concept of how we're envisioning the online platform will look like once it's out there. So the platform will be performing 2 main roles. The first role is to match-make advisors with clients. Leslie can still stay on the first screen. And then the second role of the platform is also to provide an educational space for learning and knowledge sharing about decolonizing. So when you join the platform, you'll be welcome, you'll be introduced to this community. We keep talking about a community because we are trying to build a community of advisors and advisee on decolonization. So you can take a tour on the platform and learn more. But when you go to the home page, and Nestle can move to the next slide, you'll be able to find information on terms of resources about some of the concepts of decolonizing, which will be shared on the page. So there'll be a resource page where we will randomly share documents, videos, success stories, failure stories, lessons, reports, for us to all learn together about decolonizing. And on the next slide, that's where you will be able to access all the resources that you need to know about decolonizing. So these two slides create the educational space for us to learn both as an advisor and also as someone or an organization who needs support. So the next slide too is the community page, basically. So on this platform, we are trying to create a community. And in the community here, you find everybody here, both anyone from the global north and from the global south. And you'll be able to identify which advisor you want to work with based on your specific need, based on the country context, based on the issue that you are interested in. So this is the first phase of the platform, which is the educational component of the platform, plus the community. So from now, the subsequent slides, I'll be speaking more about the matchmaking component of the platform, which is actually the core of building this website. So on the next page, once you join the next page, please, once you join the platform, you are able to sign up to join the community. And there are two sign up options. So you have the client sign up and the expert sign up. A client is any organization who needs support to decolonize in any aspects of the organization. You join as a client if you are coming in like that. The expert is also anybody, whether you are an individual or you are even an organization. You have some knowledge, you have some experience, you have some expertise in any of the domains or any aspects that an organization will need to decolonize. You join this community too as an expert. So I'll take you through how it will be like if you join the community, either as an expert or as a client. So on the next page, this is a typical example of you joining as a client. So you could be an NGO, you could be a donor. Once you register, you sign up, you're able to showcase who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself. Experts on the platform will be able to know more about you because you have access to your LinkedIn page and your website to get more information about who you are. And you're also able to post a call opportunity to share your terms of reference at any point in time you need support or you need an advisory support. So on the next page, you are also able to add additional information about where you are located, the kind of work that you do, the type of organization you are, whether you're an NGO or you are just a northern-based organization or you're even a global south organization who needs support. And you are also here given the space to frequently showcase the specific services that you need advisory. So if you need advice in organizational governance, you indicate it here. If you need advice in programming, in policy, you are able to also showcase it here. So the first two slides I've shown will help whoever is part of this community to know your need. And it's basically you showcasing the demand that you need support in. The last slide is more of a space for both reviewing and reflection. So this is an opportunity for us to showcase the number of organizations you've engaged with on the platform. That's the previous, the current also shows those you are currently working with, advisors that you are currently working with. And one interesting thing that we have incorporated here is the 360 review and rating. So experts are given the opportunity to rate and provide feedback to the organization they provide support with too. And on the other side too, organizations who are receiving the support are also given the opportunity to provide feedback. So the ratings here are in two phases. So we will have what we call the pre-engagement rating and post-engagement rating. So then organizations are able to assess you before they work with you directly, or experts will be able to assess the organization before they work with them. And after engaging with them too, they're also given the space to provide their ratings and also their feedback in terms of review. So this is the demand components of the platform. So we are going to look at how the supply components of the platform looks like. It's quite similar to this. The team were looking at creating quite simple and easy navigable platform for us all. So on the next page, you sign up as a professional. Here is for individual who sign up as an expert. So you're able to provide your information, so we're able to know more about you. On the other page too, the next page, you'll be able to also tell us more about who you are. On the next page, you'll be able to tell us more about who you are, where you work, and your areas of expertise. So the areas of expertise are basically what can you offer? What are the areas that you are expert in and you can provide support in? So you're also allowed to share those on the platform. Then the final page allows you to receive feedback from organizations that you've engaged with. Like I mentioned early on, it's a 360 feedback. So you give feedback to the NGOs and the NGOs also share their feedback with you. The experts on this platform are in two parts. So we have the professionals, where here it represents individuals or independent consultants who provide advisory services. But on the other hand, you could also be coming as an organization with expertise or consultancy support that you can provide for other organizations. So the other slide, the next slide, will showcase information if you are an expert, but you are not coming in as an individual, but you are coming in as an organization. And here, the interesting component is that you are also allowed to post a call for advisory support because the community is together learning how to decolonize, both from the demand and the supply side. So at a point, as an expert organization, you may also need support. So you are also given the space to share your support, areas of support you need. And just as it is with the others, you can also provide information about who you are on the next page, information about where you work and the services you offer. And on the next page too, you are also given the space for people to give you a review and feedback. So the demand side, the supply, that's the expert, and the individual expert and organization expert provide the services to the demand side. And the services comes with a reasonable rate fee, which will be charged to ensure that there's offers that are being provided are remunerated from both ends. So this is the online platform we are creating. So at this point, we would like to hear from you. When we started, we are always talking about this is a community for all of us. So this is a website that we are all going to be using. So imagine you chance upon this platform somewhere in January 2023. Can you tell us? You can share with us in the chat or you can raise your hand. is there anything here that does not meet the demands or that is currently available for decolonizing? Anyone could share, you can share it in the chat, or you can equally also raise your hand. And at this point, I'll be glad to hand it over to Rebecca to help me to facilitate this session. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Nancy. So we've got a few minutes to hear initial impressions, and the prompt questions are in the chat. So we heard, based on the existing needs in the sector, do you think a platform such as the one that Nancy's just shown us could facilitate meeting demand with the supply? And do you have any suggestions? We're also going to launch a Mentimeter at the end of the call to get more feedback, but we'd love to hear some live now. Hear it or see it in the chat. What are your initial impressions? Is this something you would use on either side of this? I mean, we're talking about it in very kind of polar terms at the moment, supply and demand. Would you use a platform like this? And if so, what would you be drawn to? And if you had reservations, what are those reservations? What would you want us to know about before we take this any further? Gerrit.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for this presentation. I think it's a wonderful initiative because it can bring people together. And my comment would also be about bringing people together, because I often see that I'm a consultant working with partnerships, and I often see that working together with other consultants might add value. So to see other people who are working in the same field and potentially jointly engaging in an assignment, for me especially, linking up with consultants from the Global South, me being from the Global North, provides a lot of added value to have both perspectives. If it could be used for that as well, it would be a great added value to me.
So Gerrit, what I'm hearing here is, you know, we see this as a bit of a matchmaking service. And what you're saying is it could also be matchmaking people who can provide a service collaboratively with others, but who perhaps don't know about each other.
Sure.
Fantastic. Abdul.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think he shares the same view as I was also coming to talk about, especially with those of us from the Global South. It will be appropriate for it to be more user-friendly because of the internet challenge and other things. So I would appeal that it should be more user-friendly. Thank you so much.
You would like it to be more user-friendly than it is at the moment, Abdul?
Yes, please. Yes.
And do you have any specific pointers for the team about how we could make it more user-friendly?
Like creating a portion for the consultants, it will be nice. And that side too, a lot of other consultants from Global South could also meet other consultants. So it will be nice you have a portion like that.
Great. So I think you're echoing a bit what Gerrit was saying about it can also be a great meeting spot for people who can offer a service and have expertise. Mara, please come in.
Hello, sorry, me again. So because the decolonization agenda is so diverse and is composed of so many different issues that are sometimes not connected one with the other, the skills for one are not the same as the other ones, is there going to be any kind of classification, you know, like branding of each one of the skills?
Yes, Nancy, do you want to respond to that at all? Different kinds of skills or services?
Thank you, Mara. So we have that, and the different profile pages of all the experts is there for you to specify your different kinds of skills and services that you offer. And in the community page, the assumption, the idea is that you are you'll be given the opportunity to search per different criteria. If you are interested in a particular skill set, you can search and you'll be able to find all those who are similarly having the same skill set. And that also helps to connect with the two previous questions about getting the meeting spots for different experts or advisors to come together to provide the support. Yeah.
So it looks like in the chat there is lots of interest in the community side of this, the community building side, the long-term engagement. And as Nancy explained, it does have both sides. So there is the matchmaking, which facilitates engagement between people who are looking for expertise and people who hold expertise. And then there is the other side, which is the community building, which is resourced, which might facilitate conversations from time to time and enable people to connect regardless of whether they're actually looking for a service or not. Is that right, Nancy?
Yes, exactly.
And Richard, let's hear from you, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm just so I work in the tech space. I build quite a lot of platforms for people, and always the challenge is, you know, to make sure it's not the technology that's leading, is the sort of business or social issue. I just, because like to Dylan's point, I really think this is a mindset shift, and it's really hard to change people's mindsets. I think we know that from lots of spheres of life. I just wonder, I'm just trying to work out how this platform meets that challenge. I mean, what sorts of skills are people actually going to put on this platform? What is the skill of decolonizing, organizing it? I can get it for governance and maybe how
that was my question. What is this? There's no skill called decolonizing.
Yeah, and then and then with any of these which basically you're trying to build an expert network, how do you judge quality? I mean, how do you know that I can decolonize the mindset of an organized? I just, it's not quite fit. It's not quite fitting for me. So
yeah, so there's so much to unpack in this term decolonizing, and in the survey, Nancy, you really broke it down into what are the specific services you're looking for, or to the experts in the South, what kind of skills do you offer? Maybe you could give us some sense of those categories.
Okay, so actually what we found was that there are different skill sets across board. So some of the advisors indicated that they can offer skills in funding or grant making, in program, in organizational governance, in governance, policy making, and basically something around project management, programming. So those were the kind of skills that were coming out from the expert that we reached out to. When you look at the Global North too, they were also looking support to help them in their programming, in their governance, in their leadership. So we have different sets of skill sets needed and different sets of skill sets that are also being offered. But what this platform is designed is not to, let me say, predetermine specific skill sets that we are interested in, because we are still unpacking what decolonizing is all about. So you join the community, you have some expertise in, for example, programming, you join the community. And if at a point there is an INGO that needs support to reimagine their programs in the decolonizing lens, then you come in to provide that advisory support. So we cannot at the initial stage predetermine just small skill sets that we need because we are still unpacking what decolonizing is about.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. And then we're going to open up a Mentimeter in a moment to get more feedback from you. Just to wrap up the final part of your question, Richard, how do you know whether the service has been successful or not? What's very interesting for me about this website is that it asks the expert, both sides, but it asks the expert to rate the organization that they've delivered a service to at the end of the process. And so if an organization has only been giving lip service, for example, to decolonizing, but hasn't shown the commitment to work through the process, then that will be visible on the site. And so there is some feedback to organizations about whether they have really taken up the full opportunity that's been made available to them through the service and through the community. And it's another way of disrupting power a little bit, is to expose organizations that say one thing and do another. So with that, Kat's going to put a link in Menti. Stay with us after you've filled in Menti. This is not the end of the session. We just want to tell you what the next steps are. But first, let's hear a little bit more feedback from you. Leslie will screen share some of the results as they come in. So we're asking, what do you like most about the platform? It allows organizations to network with one another, expertise coming from the Global South, great place to find experts we don't yet know, brings different stakeholders together to exchange knowledge, clear design, matchmaking through community, which creates a variety of different types of collaborations, connecting Global South experts with Global North professionals, South-North capacity building. It valorizes knowledge and expertise from the Global South. Factors trying to pull together all perspectives on decolonization. It surfaces who is interested in working in this space. It makes visible need and support. Lots of different experiences. Great, so we're seeing some clear trends and themes there. It's an equalizing mechanism. Lovely. What do you recommend we do differently? That'll be the next question. What do you recommend we do differently? Given that this is a prototype, you've just seen a PDF of something that will ultimately become a website. There's lots of space now still to rethink, to tweak, to redesign. What do you think we should be doing that we haven't yet done, or seeing that we apparently can't yet see? Great, we are going to definitely include a community space. There was lots of feedback about that in the survey, and what we're hearing now is very much an amplification of that request. Clarify whether the focus for the platform is decolonizing NGOs or just offering consultancy on different topics from the Global South. I think that's a salient reminder about what's the focus. The space for community building, kill the words expert and client, they're other in a colonial way. Expand and include, reach out to Southern-based evaluators, management consultants, accountants, business advisors. All of these skills are useful and relevant. Somebody else has agreed to add skills that offer a wider range around decolonization, make it more user-friendly, build the space for ongoing learning, include multiple languages, include the voices and expertise of children. Now that's something we haven't thought about. And maybe a rating. And then we've got one more question for you, which is, if you, maybe you've already answered this, but we're trying to make it personal now. If you were to use this platform, if you saw yourself as a prospective user, what would you need that we haven't yet addressed? And as I say, you might have said it already, but if there's one more thing please tell us. What would you need? What rates are being offered, super helpful. How to shift mindsets, especially of those whose power is threatened. What are the best practices? A measure of the quality of experts, a one-page on what it does, how it works, who can connect. One-to-one coaching opportunities. We haven't really thought about that. Thanks for naming that. Organizational case studies, a user-friendly search option to find experts, spec for more open conversation like a forum with topics, how to engage others in decolonizing advocacy and policy positions. Great. Again, I think that's something we haven't yet paid as much attention to. Lovely. Thank you for this feedback. This is super helpful. Janet, any final comments from you about the current status of the prototype, or anything else you'd like to respond to in terms of the Mentimeter before we hand over to Alicia for next steps?
I hope you can hear me. You can hear me? Okay, you can hear me. I hope you can. No, I'm aware.
You're very quiet. I can just about hear.
Oh my God, there's something wrong with my. Anyway, I think what I'm saying, I think you've enriched the process very much. Nancy, I'm sure you agree, we've gotten a lot more ideas and a lot of stuff to work with. I think the idea of a connecting point, even within Southern, a bit of, a mix of things, which I think we may not have been there originally. I think it's great. And I think we really appreciate this forum. I believe there's room for Nancy and the team to make it much richer and kind of more relevant to the situation and testing it out. One of the things I heard from some of the comments is that we may need to be careful about presenting the South as experts. I don't think that's really the intention. I think we basically are saying there are resources that are available. There is competence that we can write on to push the decolonization process even further. So Nancy, Rebecca, I think we are good to go. Rebecca, you are muted. You're muted again. Oh, okay.
Keeps remuting. Alicia, let's hear a bit from you about where we go from here with the prototype. And then Dylan, perhaps you could end us off.
Thank you so much. I just want to say a huge thank you to Rebecca, to Janet, to Anna, to Nancy, to Dylan, all of our group who's really tried to walk everyone through a really large envisioned process with many different parts, many of which are still open to feedback and change. So thank you all for going through that process with us. We thank you all so much for your experience and your reflections. And now we want to put on the table a few actions that can be taken, right? So to sustain this very actionable work that we've done, these gains that we have, first and foremost, we want everyone to share and speak widely about this prototype. So not only do we have several days left in our RINGO learning journey together, we have the space to share this information with colleagues and to seek their guidance and their feedback. So speaking widely about this prototype with colleagues in this session, but also more broadly, particularly engaging both Global North and Global South actors, that's something all of us can partake in, and we really hope that you all will do that with us. Second, and this goes very much back to the mindset issues we've talked about already in this session at length, we all need to work on continuing to let go of this perception and this traditional kind of colonialist mentality that knowledge and capacity building expertise has to originate in the Global North. Inherently, that's one of the biggest norms we are trying to change and undo in the work of this prototype. And that is not something that happens overnight or in any one conversation in action. It's a work and a culture shift and a norm shift all of us can work on changing together. And then third, we want to remind everyone that we need to embrace that there are voices, advocates, experts, and advisors in the Global South who are leading this type of work. And they are already concurrently supporting like NGOs and many global North actors who are already trying to take steps on this journey. So what we mean to say is that we're not reinventing the wheel. And as we just touched on earlier, we don't mean to define that only experts in the Global South can engage in this space. It is to say that as many Global South voices as we can engage as possible is ideal. And that's going to inherently include experts, advocates, and many other types of voices too, advisors, et cetera. That's the mindset and the spirit behind this work that we're trying to do. So we invite you all into this community. Of course, you're already here, but to continue learning with us. We certainly want feedback from you all along the way. And I believe there's also a survey link that we're going to put in the chat. I don't know if someone's able to do that, but we wanted to invite a survey link to be put in the chat as we're inviting you all to partner with us to not only implement this prototype, but to scale it up as well, because we're still testing it and trying it out right now and designing it. And Nancy walked you through what it looks like right now. We do intend to build it out and scale it up and share. So if there's ways for us to be in touch in that way and during that process, we would love to do that. So I thank you all for involving yourselves in this session and learning with us. And I'll turn it over to Dylan if there's any final comments you'd like to share with our group.
Thanks, Alicia. Really appreciate your words there and really want to just echo those, I think, in just the final few minutes that we have. I suppose from my perspective and those of us who have been working on this for some time, what we see, and I hope you all see this too, is that the sector is slowly moving towards a tipping point. You know, we have had many opportunities in the past which we've missed. I think we've lost those opportunities to transform our sector. This isn't the first moment in our sector where we've been asking ourselves some difficult questions, but I think this moment feels different. I think we are edging towards a transformation of the sector which will transform our relationships with those who we are hoping to serve and to support and to work with in solidarity. And I think that's extremely exciting for all of us. Of course, it's scary. And of course, some of us are going to find this really difficult, this change process. But I want us all to engage in this, and we all really do need to engage in this, because the outcomes for communities around the world will be improved. This isn't just a process of transforming the sector so that we become just more efficient, or that of course, we're going to shift the power in doing that. This will improve the lives of communities around the world, and we will all, as global citizens, I think, be improved by this change agenda. So it requires all of us, I think, to invest in this, whether we're at the beginning of that journey or midway through that journey, or just dipping our toe in. We all have to engage in this. So I just encourage you all to continue the conversations with us, continue the conversations with your peers, your partners, and your constituencies, because this issue is not going away, and I have tremendous hope and optimism that this will lead to a radically new sort of sector for us all. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, team. So this wraps us up. We are going to have half an hour break after this, and then there are 2 more prototyping teams who will present at 1/4 the hour. One is called Untying Aid, and the link is coming up in the chat. Another is called Solidarity for the People, by the People. And that's looking particularly at the situation in Eswatini, Swaziland. I'm just going to put the link in the chat now. And after that, we've got the chance to have a meal together and a reflection session with members of your household, should you want. And then we go into 3 open space sessions into the evening in this part of the world. So We warmly encourage you to keep joining us for the things that pique your interest, to keep contributing. This has been a super lively conversation. And we hope you also get a chance for a bit of a break, because these are very intense moments of connection between us. Anything else from Nancy, just in the remaining minute or two? Is there anything else you would like to say, Nancy?
Just one thing, first of all, to thank everyone for the feedback. And there's a survey link that we've shared. Please share your information with us. We want to continue to build this community together with you. We will reach out to you. So please don't forget to share your information with us. That is all. Thank you very much, Rebecca, and the whole team.
Go well, enjoy the break. Thank you for all of the wonderful ideas.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, everyone.